Hello and welcome to my programming in Python tutorial series. In today's video, we are doing variables, and I plan to teach you what variables are and what types of variables there are. And we are going to use some variables in some programming. So let's start. What is a variable? Well, a variable is a reserved memory location to store values, and that might just seem like I just got a bunch of random words from the dictionary and put them into a sentence, but in easy talk, that is a piece of memory that is used to store some changing value. And I put them in green and red to show simplicity, but if you even find this one confusing, then just continue watching this video as it gets pretty straightforward after. So, now we have done what a variable is, let's do what types of variables there are. And the first one I am going to show you about is strings, which are basically just words and sentences, that kind of stuff. Then we can also have floats, which are numbers that end in a point something. For example, 0.1 or 5.6 or anything like that ends in a point something. Next, we have integers and lists. Well, lists are a bit debatable, but we have integers. And I've just made a mistake. Can you spot it here? This was on purpose. If you have found it, you would have found that I've named 3 variables b, which wouldn't be very good for programming if I want them as separate. For example, if I want b not to be 0.1 but to be 23 and this, then this is what I would write. But if I want b to be 0.1 and then a separate variable to be 1 and so on, then name your variables different things. Although there are some words you can't use, I'll post a Google Doc on the bottom of the description, which you can find out all of those words, but just don't name your variables the same thing. And integers mean the same thing that it means in math, which it means whole numbers. Basically, any number that doesn't have a point something at the end. So it can't be 0.5 or 0.6 or 0.0. It can just be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now, we have done strings, floats, and integers, and the next one's a bit debatable if you want to consider a variable or not, but I'm just going to put it in because it's a bit useful to what we're doing in this video. So, this is B. B is a list, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of variables. And so we have variable number 1, which is a string, as you can see here. It is marked by quotation marks, which is 23 and 9. Not to be confused that these are separate numbers. As you can see, because of the quotation marks, it's just one variable. And 45. List can be even bigger than this. It's not just 2, but I've just made a quick list right here. So, let's continue. But first, I have an announcement. Since we need to have a goal, what we want to complete by the end of this tutorial series, I have found a project that I think is useful for beginners, as we are doing everything we are covering in this tutorial series. So that's variables, functions, and etc. It's a really good project just to cover all of the basics of programming, and it's a simple form of a quiz. So let's watch that clip of me showing you. Alright, this is what project we are going to be making. Let me just quickly start it again. There we go. It's a simple quiz on whatever topic we want it to be. For example, I just made mine on space, and I've only made 2 questions, but you can add as many questions as you want, and so on. This is what we're going to be making. This is just a quick demonstration of me playing the quiz, and if you want to, you can just quickly guess the answers as well. So I'm just going to play it. And there we go. Once you have finished the quiz, it says well done. It says well done, you've got, and then it says your score. The score is a variable, by the way. So this is the programming. I've only made 2 questions, but if you quickly just look at this, you can see that these two lines of code are almost exactly the same, but it just has a different variable and a different question in it. So this is what we're going to be making. First of all, let's start a new idle shell, but before we do this, we need to do one more quick important thing on. Alright, now a quick lesson on how to convert different types of variables to other types of variables. So, for example, as you can see here, we have a variable named a, and a has a value of 2, and this is an integer value variable. And then we have b, which is str and then brackets a, which you might be confused by, as this is not algebra, we're actually programming, but what we're doing here is converting a into a string. This is the function for converting into a string. So if we wrote that into a program and then did the print command to print the variable b, it would print 2 in speech marks. That is how we recognize a string. Next, as you can see here, we have c, which is a float and has a value of 4.4. Now, this other variable named d is int brackets c, which, as you might have guessed from seeing this is how you convert a float into an integer. I don't know why, but to convert to a float is like the only variable that isn't made of three letters. So that's just a bit weird, but I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Next. For some reason, it's a weird glitch, but if you convert a float into an integer, it just cuts off whatever is beyond the point. So, for example, what used to be 4.4 is now just 4 as an integer, because integers mean whole numbers in math and programming. Next, we have another variable named e, which is the float of d. Now, this is a bit of a weird glitch, but I guess why this happens, because as you can see here, we have an original float, which is 4.4. We have changed that into a different type of variable, which is an integer, and then when we convert that integer into a float again, it just gives out 4.4. Now, the reason of this is because this is a separate variable from this. So while c is still 4.4, d is now into a 4.0. So that's what that happens. So next, we need to do a bit of programming ourselves, because we need to start on the quiz.